For centuries, the Great Library of Alexandria has lived in the imagination as a symbol of human brilliance and human failure. It once held works that mapped the stars, measured the earth, and questioned the nature of existence itself. Yet its shelves fell silent, leaving behind only fragments and rumors of what once filled them. The loss still forces a difficult question. What vanished ideas might have changed the course of history? And why does the memory of this library continue to stir such a deep sense of absence? The Great Library rose during a period when Alexandria stood at the crossroads of the Mediterranean world. Founded by the early Ptolemies in the 3rd century BCE, the city drew merchants, sailors, diplomats, and scholars who moved through its harbors in a constant exchange of language and ambition. The rulers of Egypt understood the political value of knowledge. They invested heavily in gathering texts from across Greece, Persia, Babylon, India, and North Africa, creating a space where ideas from different cultures met for the first time. The library's staff included mathematicians, astronomers, physicians, and geographers who shaped early scientific thought. They worked within the museum, a research center that resembled a blend of university, monastery, and workshop. Figures such as Eratosthenes and Archimedes left a mark on fields that still depend on their methods. Daily life inside the library mixed study with debate. Scholars examined scrolls, copied rare manuscripts, and compared accounts from distant lands. The atmosphere pushed both curiosity and discipline, encouraging them to question old beliefs while recording new observations. Yet the same openness that allowed innovation also made the library vulnerable. Political shifts, Roman expansion, and cultural tensions gathered over time, placing this institution in the path of forces it could not control. The stage was set for a loss that would echo through generations. The story of the library's decline is not a single dramatic moment but a sequence of disruptions. Each one chipped away at the institution that had once commanded global respect. The earliest blow likely came in the 1st century, BCE, when conflict between Julius Caesar and Egyptian forces brought fire into the city. Ancient accounts differ in detail, but many describe flames reaching the harbor warehouses where stored scrolls awaited cataloging. These texts may not have been the core of the library, yet the impact signaled how easily knowledge could be misplaced in the chaos of war. Another period of strain emerged during the Roman Empire. Support for scholarly work shifted as priorities leaned toward military order and taxation. The museum continued but with fewer resources. Scholars left, funding dropped, and the intellectual energy that had defined the early centuries gradually thinned. Institutions built on curiosity struggle when political leadership values stability over exploration. The 4th century introduced new pressures. Religious shifts across the empire changed cultural attitudes toward older philosophical traditions. Tension grew between groups that viewed classical scholarship with caution and those who remained committed to its preservation. Government edicts restricted certain teachings and reshaped the intellectual landscape. The library's remaining collections faced an uncertain future as public interest in classical texts weakened. By the time Alexandria reached the later centuries of antiquity, the once great institution had become shadows of its former self. Accounts from the era mention smaller libraries surviving in nearby buildings, perhaps containing selections salvaged from earlier losses. These smaller collections could not match the scale of the original archive. They remained vulnerable to further conflict, including political rivalries and localized violence that often struck urban centers of the period. The final stages are difficult to pinpoint. Some historians believe remaining texts were dispersed into private collections, religious centers, or small scholarly circles. Others argue that repeated neglect caused scrolls to decay naturally. The lack of definitive records only deepens the sense of mystery surrounding the library's disappearance. Through each wave of change, one question remained: how much of humanity's early knowledge slipped away? The answer lies in the combined effect of centuries of instability, revealing that the loss was not a single event but a gradual unraveling. The decline of the library reveals how fragile knowledge can be when political, cultural, and economic pressures collide. Scholars inside the library lived in a world that valued discovery, yet they depended on rulers whose priorities shifted with every new threat. Their long hours of copying texts and comparing ideas were often at odds with the violence and turmoil beyond the library walls. Each turning point showed a different kind of vulnerability. Military conflict demonstrated how quickly physical collections could be erased. Changes in imperial priorities exposed the limits of relying on royal funding. Cultural and religious shifts raised deep questions about whose knowledge counted and whose did not. These forces didn't strike all at once, but the accumulated pressure reshaped Alexandria's intellectual environment. For modern audiences, the emotional weight comes from imagining what might have survived. The library embodied centuries of human effort, curiosity, and cooperation across cultures. Its disappearance reminds us that progress is not guaranteed, and that even the greatest institutions can be undone by events outside their control. This sense of loss is not theatrical. It is a quiet acknowledgement that forgotten works might have held insights into science, medicine, geography, or philosophy that arrived centuries before their rediscovery. The turning points of the library's history urge us to consider how closely human advancement depends on preserving the past. Today, the Great Library of Alexandria stands as a symbol of both achievement and caution. The physical structure may be gone, but its legacy shapes how societies think about knowledge. Modern libraries, archives, and research centers draw from the same belief that ideas should be shared, preserved, and protected from political currents that might threaten them. The library's disappearance also highlights the importance of documentation. Much of what we know about its operations comes from scattered references in ancient texts. These glimpses allow historians to piece together a picture of what the institution once represented. Although the exact contents of its lost scrolls remain unknown, the consistency of ancient testimony reinforces the scale of its influence. In the long view, the library's fate reflects a broader pattern. Ideas thrive when communities invest in them. They fade when societies lose the will or capacity to support them. The fall of Alexandria's great archive demonstrates how knowledge requires more than storage. It needs continuity, respect, and protection. Modern institutions, from universities to digital archives, attempt to avoid the vulnerabilities that once doomed the library. Improved preservation methods, broader access, and international cooperation help ensure that valuable information does not vanish through neglect or destruction. These efforts are part of the library's most enduring legacy. The story of what was lost forever may never be resolved. Yet the lasting impact of the Great Library lies in the awareness it created. It encourages us to value scholarship, safeguard cultural memory, and recognize the responsibility each generation carries. The silence of its empty shelves continues to remind us that the pursuit of knowledge is both fragile and worth defending.